Well, hello everybody, it's me again, Raymond Grosicki, co-founder and CEO of League of Linguists, and I would like to talk to you today about something very important, punctuation. Do you get really frustrated by people who don't put in a question mark when they should, and you wonder whether it's a question or a statement, things like that, Well, question marks are really the easiest point of the whole lexicography or spectrum of punctuation, but there are lots and lots of other things to go through as well, which people just get wrong. Now, when I'm texting or when I'm doing ordinary informal stuff, punctuation is much of a muchness, especially at the end of a sentence, but it can be really useful inside, just to give that little extra emphasis in understanding. Let me show you. So, let's start with the easy one, the full stop. Now, in the US, it's called a period. Goodness knows why. And of course, it goes at the end of a sentence. There's only one space after, and there's never a space before. Just simply like this. There's nothing more easy than that. So I'm not gonna waste your time or insult your intelligence. Let's go on to the comma. So the comma is really a signpost. And I think the comma is the most important thing that people forget, because it helps with things like the reader's ability to follow intonation and flow. And we'll come to that in a minute. But also, don't forget, if you've got a long sentence, it helps you to fit it into manageable sections. Of course, listing items, recognizing where to pause, breathing. People always thought it was about breathing only, but it's not. It's about lots of other things. And we're going to look at the Oxford comma. So, Oxford comma is an optional comma before the word and. And it goes a long way to helping you understand where commas should function. It was traditionally used at, of course, Oxford University Press. And it is really it's not obligatory, but it really helps in many cases. Let me give you an idea. Especially when a sentence in a list, it may be a multi-word list. It can be helpful in this. So here we go. Now, these are things I gleaned off the internet. If you haven't seen them before, you should see them now. Here we are. Now, in the first one, we are missing the Oxford comma. Highlights of Peter Ustinov's tour include encounters with Nelson Mandela, an 800-year-old demigod, and an adult toy collector. Well, what does it say? Without that comma, it's almost as if we are making Nelson Mandela out to be extraordinarily old. We're deifying him, and he has an unusual hobby. So that comma really does help for us to understand, the reader to understand, that there are three things in that list. And the same goes with the second one. We invited the triathlon team, my grandmother and her best friend. Right, well, I guess you don't want to get first prize unless your grandmother and her best friend are extraordinarily speedy and much younger than they purport themselves to be. So the comma goes a long way into helping us understand there are three things or people or entities in that list. Okay, let's go on to the apostrophe. In formal emails, there are only reasons to use the apostrophe in possessives. For example, Helen's book, Microsoft's products. That's in the singular. So what do we use in the plural? Well, we would use the apostrophe after the S, so employees, guidelines, citizens' rights. However, when we have plurals which do not end in S, we revert to the apostrophe S. Please do not put children's with an apostrophe after. Same with men's, women's, and people's. The reason why we do this with these forwards is because, especially children, men, and women, is because they are ancient words. They've been in our language for years and years, and generations, millennia. and so they were around before English standardized its grammar, and that's why we don't have a proper, say, regularized plural for words like that. And this goes for things like animals, things like deer and bison. They don't pluralize them at all, because they've been in our language for years and years and years. Okay. In formal writing, it is more or less, let's say, taken for granted that you should use full words and not the apostrophized smaller version. So don't use don't, isn't, haven't, etc. Use do not, is not, have not, and the rest. Simply because it shows they've made the extra effort, and it's easier to do the apostrophe thing than to actually write full words. It shows the reader we've made the effort, and we're giving them respect. And of course, by using the full text, it also means that we command respect to ourselves. So we are saying we are an informed source. So we give respect and we receive respect simply by using full words. So that's when the apostrophe should not be used. Okay. The colon and the semicolon. In here, I think these are, can I say, very underestimated pieces of furniture and very useful, especially the semicolon. So the colon is used, as we know, as I've made an example here, to introduce a list and to prepare the reader for this. That's what punctuation is for, preparing the reader for what is coming next, especially with the colon and the comma. Now, semicolon, which is the point and the comma underneath, these are used to join related facts in one sentence. For example, the milk produced in Herefordshire is of a high standard. It is not commercially available outside of the catchment area. By using it like this, we understand already that these two things are connected. The milk and it, they are the same thing. We're just using the shortened pronoun in the second part because they are connected. It's almost like having one sentence with two possible outcomes. We put them together. And then another idea we can use it is to separate lists, to separate items in the list where the list also includes commas. So, for example, the band includes Ed Baker, guitar and vocals, Clara Friedman, piano, Ben Taylor, vocals, and Roberta Zimmerman, drums. And by doing it like this, we understand who's doing what. So if we were to just use commas after each, we would spend a little bit more time wondering who did what. Okay. When is it okay to use an exclamation mark in professional circumstances? I'll give you a gentle hint, shall I? There we go. And if you do, you shouldn't have your job, because you obviously need help. Any person using exclamation marks is a red flag. Moving on. If you are using it to give instructions or requests, forget it. If you are, you should be taken outside and humiliated in front of your employees. I used it there just ironically. Don't think I'm one of them. You can get away with it if it's an informal basis, of course, someone you know well, you're making a light-hearted observation, etc., or you are saying, I am very excited to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Maybe then you can get away with it. But you should really know who you're writing to, because it can come across as if you are rather unhinged if you use it to the wrong person. Okay, going on. Question mark. Do you know how to use it? Good. Let's go on. Hope so. Quotation marks are very, very useful. In English, they go above the letters. In some fonts, they form a 66-99 shape. Almost my favourite number. Sorry, no. And punishment. But in others, they may just form two vertical lines. It depends. So sometimes you can find them in the singular, sometimes in the plural. Now, why did we end up with them in the singular? Certain book publishers in the mid-20th century found that they could actually save a litre of ink per print run simply by only using one quotation mark. Unbelievable, eh? Things they'll do to save ink. Capitalism at its finest. Right, brackets. You have the curly brackets and the square brackets, also known as the round brackets and the square brackets. And we use them often for non-essential or helpful information, either to hide information away or to make information more visible. Depends on how it's presented. So these are usually things like dates or reminders. There may be people's positions in photos, as we will see here. In the first one, we would like to refer you to the relevant paragraph in our terms and conditions. Brackets, section 4, paragraph 5, close brackets, which stresses the need for confidentiality. In here, very, very clear, and we've got the brackets there really help when we, for example, are reading on a bit further, and we just want to come back to, oh, where was that point again that I needed to find? The brackets help us to really locate it in the text. They're very useful in those ways. People who don't use brackets or who say we shouldn't use brackets, no. I think there is a time and a place for prescriptivism, and this isn't one. Second one, photo caption. Peter Caulfield, MP, left, and Councillor Marjorie Simmons, right, as if you didn't know who was Peter and who was Marjorie, but there we are. Meeting the head of Tudor Rose School, Penelope Baxter, centre. There we go, that's the reason why, because there are 3 people. At the opening of a new music facility. In there, it's really, really clear who is who. Okay. Because when we have 3 people, obviously there are going to be at least 2 who might have the same name. Let us go on. Hyphen versus dash. So this is really a matter of naming. They are all horizontal lines. The hyphen is used to unite 2 words, for example, first class stamp, all-inclusive trip, Director General. It can also be used to separate prefixes and suffixes from the root, for example, cooperation and ex-wife. 2 unfortunate words I put there together, but there we are. A dash is used to separate 2 parts of a sentence. So a dash is longer. It's sometimes called the M dash because it's the same length as the letter M. They're necessary for secrecy, which is essential in this case, should not interfere with people's work patterns. It works very, very similar to brackets. But this is generally when the information flows from one particular thing to another and then into another. And it's also very useful. Going on. How do we make this dash become longer because it's not on the keyboard? Well, it's quite simple. We do it like this. So we've got the thing at the top. So when we actually write the necessity for secrecy, we'll make a space, and then we press either the minus button or the dash button, make another space. When we actually type the next word, which is which, and make that next space, you will see that the little dash will get longer. It's as simple as that. There you go. Right, a couple of other bits and bobs. Let's have a look at the difference between comma versus point. So this is in mathematics. Generally, we use points for decimals, so it's still a full stop, but it's called a point when it's in mathematics. And commas we use for thousands and millions. We don't say 3,5 million, so we don't really need to say the comma, but it's there simply to be to help us separate them. However, in various international institutions, including the EU, thousands and millions are usually separated by a space. And goodness knows why in countries like Switzerland, they often put them as apostrophes. It looks horrible, but who am I to say? Moving on. Internet language. Can you put symbols to these? What's a dot? Well, which planet have you been living on? Dot is, of course, and a dash is a as we know. What's a slash? And at is that, and the underscore is, of course, the horizontal line at the bottom, as we see here. Why are they called dots and dashes in internet language? Simply because it's a rather romantic tale. In order to commemorate a language which was dying out at the time, that is Morse code, they decided to keep the spirit of Morse code alive by using the words dot and dash to refer to full stop and hyphen in internet language. And good job they did, because it helps us reduce a lot of the, what can I call it, the spoken word. Instead of saying www full stop, just say dot. Okay, and finally, letters of the alphabet when it comes to spelling. This is something I tagged on at the end, might be useful to you. Many people are not sure how to spell certain letters, or what to call certain letters of the alphabet, and especially these ones. Think about it. A, E, G, H, I, J, Q, R, U, X, Y, Z. The Americans call it Z, but in parts of the world where the Renaissance took place, we call it a Z. And it comes from the Greek zeta. That's why it's called a Z. In American, they wanted it to rhyme with E, B, and C. Oh well, whatever floats their boat, I guess. Well, that's all I've got for you for this time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to send us an email at info@lowlinguists.com, or you can like, comment, or share any of our social media stuff. Thank you very much. Cheerio.